Nintendo DS. It's got quite a history of providing experimental games with its little touchscreen feature. Some work pretty well, while others are best left in the dust. Apparently it didn't do well enough to be a prominent feature for the 3DS, but it sure didn't quit while it's ahead. I still have some solid value of time with a collection of games here though. Hell, some of my favorite games of all time are DS games, so why don't we check them out? These are my top 10 favorite Nintendo DS games. I'm a moderate fan of uniquely mechanized block puzzle games like Puyo Puyo and Panel de Pon, even though the ones I played have different IPs tied to them. So naturally, I was pretty excited to give Meteos a shot. Meteos is a block puzzle game that has the traditional block drops and swipes gameplay, but the twist here is that every chain you make gets launched to space to inflict damage to your opponents. Just watching all of these blocks combo together and fly across the screen is exhilarating. The game is pretty difficult, mainly due to the block swaps being restricted to vertical only, and attacks from the CPU piles up pretty fast, even in the easier difficulties. The idea of a puzzle game centered around a galactic battle between planets is honestly pretty awesome, though if there's anything to expect from the endings of the story mode of this game, let's just say Star Fox Command has its tutor. I definitely would like to see Sakurai pick this game back up and do more with it. It may not be Kirby, Smash Bros or Kid Icarus, but it's an underground classic that absolutely earned its cult following. Does anyone still remember Spirit Tracks? No one? Well then, I hope you don't think I'm crazy when I say that there was once a Zelda game where you ride trains. Spirit Tracks takes a lot of its gameplay from Phantom Hourglass, and I know how much you all love that game. It does maintain a lot of the good stuff from the game though, like the touchscreen controls working pretty well with the Zelda-style exploration and combat. And a lot of the dungeon designs are pretty sweet too. Tower of Spirits is basically the hub dungeon of the game, similar to the Temple of the Ocean King, but is marginally better handled and doesn't drag you through as much repetitive slog as you'd expect from the former. Getting new mechanics like Zelda's ghost being your active partner is a lot of fun, and teaming up with her in Phantom form is cute as frick, and I'll fight you if you disagree. It's one of the few instances prior to Breath of the Wild where Zelda becomes a prominent ally rather than a damsel for you to save. The train mechanic replaces the boats as the main mode of transport, and despite the lack of freedom to explore, you still do get a lot of customization options to get invested with the experience. Not a big fan of the flute and its mandatory microphone abuse though, but it's nothing game breaking. Even if Phantom Hourglass doesn't do it for you, don't be afraid to try this game out. It definitely did a lot of things that its predecessor could only wish it got done. Well, howdy do, another puzzle game already? Yep, as gimmicky as the DS touchscreen may be, it complements puzzle games pretty well. What makes Mario vs Donkey Kong March of the Minis so great is that it makes solid use of this feature. It's nothing like its equally obscure predecessor, but it doesn't need to be. The game's all about coordinating the movement of mini Marios as you climb up the toy tower and infiltrate Donkey Kong's defenses. Think Lemmings, but with the stylus. The game looks really nice visually, with the toy aesthetic supplying all the adorable charm it needs. The puzzles are really well crafted too, and adding more to the replay value is the ability to build your own levels with any of the featuring mini Mario characters. If you think the game might be too kiddie and easy from how it looks, then prepare to shit your bricks once you got far enough, because this game doesn't pull any punches with how difficult it can get. You really gotta work on your muscle memory solving every stage mechanic instantaneously, otherwise you're gonna be seeing a lot of dead babies. It is mainly a strong surge of nostalgia that got this game out here for me, but I say it earned its right, especially given how easy it is to mess up a gimmick on the DS. On the surface, Luxs Quest seems like it could pass just fine as a tower defense game. It's got a cool steampunk art style, a variety of units to choose from in your gallery of tower sentries, and it's cool to see that even your own character can do his own fair share of fighting. But you know, that's just the appetizer. From the start, the main focus of Luxs Quest is the story. You think Danganronpa likes to mess around with your mind? Well, this Spanish-spinning tower defense beat them to it over 2 years earlier. The game initially starts with Locke fighting off the Clockwork Horde to protect his family, all the while allying with the royal archoniers of the Near Kingdom. Without giving too much away, there are a lot of backstabbing that takes effect here. The kingdom, the archoniers, and even yourself could hardly be trusted. I don't usually like forced plot twists that happen for the sake of adding tension to the story, but unlike Danganronpa, every twist in this game matters in developing the personality and decision of every character involved, which made it all absolutely worth it. If you're curious, then you just gotta pick this game up and play it for yourself. To give you an idea of how good the story is, I used it for my campus stage play. Yep. Coming out of the helm of the Megaman Zero series, Megaman ZX slid quite the update on its predecessor's gameplay style. You still got your base gameplay of side-scrolling shooter and taking down renegade Reploids, but that's about where the standard stuff ends. Your gameplay options come down to the series' signature mechanic, the biometals. These allow you to take the form of various preceding guardians from the Zero series and inherit their abilities, including, but not limited to, Zero's Saber, Harpooya's air control, Fafnir's twin flamethrowers, Leviathan's aquatic mobility, and Phantom's daggers. All these biometals open up a ton of ways to play the game and makes the adventure very replayable. In terms of story and visuals, the game is noticeably less edgy than the Zero series. Granted, it still has a rough story with threatening villains and serious character deaths, but it definitely feels more laid back overall. And honestly, I'm not against it. It's a breath of fresh air after the chaos of the Zero series. The fact that it still has its well-developed characters and presentation that's easy on the eyes and ears makes the experience just as enjoyable all in all. It's hard for me to pick which main series Pokemon should be on here, because all of them are just so good, even if some of them are way past their time. Heart Gold was a great experience that ups the ante when it comes to Gen 2 and 4's mechanics, including having your Pokemon tail you around. Platinum is the quintessential Sinnoh game with a complete Pokemon habitat and amazing update to the Gen 4 story. But ultimately, all my favorites fall to the gen I always considered my favorite of them all, Generation 5's Black and White saga. I know you'll get busy typing to tell me why I have awful taste, but what can I say? Gen 5 feels a lot more flexible than any of the Gen 4 games. It's got a lot of the mechanics that make the previous gens great and packed them together with a few refinements at hand. The pacing is faster than the Sinnoh games in general, the ability to use TMs as many times as you want is a godsend, and that Pokemon roster, boy. While Gen 5's dex is very self-contained, at least for the first game, there's still enough Pokemon here to contain an entire region's habitat. Plus, some of my all-time favorites are from this pack. Stoutland, Palpitoad, Lilligant, Leavanny, Scolipede, Electros, Chandelier, Mienshao, Reuniclus, Gigalith, Haxorus, Crocodile, Ferrothorn, Golurk, Bisharp, Axelgor, Archeops, Excadrill, Draminiton, Reshiram, Zekrom, Kyurem, Victini. And that doesn't even begin to cover all of them. Even the story takes a more serious direction for Pokemon. While you could argue that the plot itself hardly matters in the series' long run, it's nice to see that the characters at least go through notable growths, especially with the sister games tying in as sequels. The gen does indeed have shortcomings, like I personally don't like how they cut out Gen 5 Pokemon in the sequel, as well as the oversaturation of tutorials, but I'd be damned to give up on the games just for that. While some could argue that there are better Pokemon generations, this one remains my favorite. That being said, these are not my favorite Pokemon games. What is it then? Well, we'll get to that. Continuing the train of my favorite games from respective franchises, here comes one of the top seeds of the Kirby legacy. Before the era of computer gen Kirbys, Squeak Squad very much peaks the quality of the Kirby formula. It has everything you'll ever want in a good Kirby game. Radiant graphics, a ton of diverse abilities, and features that add to the convenience of the adventure. Like every Kirby game, this game has its own selection of cool unique abilities to play around with, such as Animal, Bubble, Magic, and Triple Star. There's also Ghost, which allows you to mess around with the enemy AI at your leisure, and Metal, which we don't speak of. You can even upgrade your abilities to get cool new moves from familiar abilities, which is how you gain access to the oh so fabulous Elemental Swords. On top of the big fun adventure, we also got introduced to the Squeaks, some of the coolest villains in the series, led by the ever so kick-ass Daroach. Who would have thought that a game about Kirby simply wanting to get back on the people who stole his cake could be this good? If all of this doesn't sell you on just how fantastic this game is, I'll let you in on one more neat little trivia. Sleep is actually helpful in this game. So, about my favorite Pokemon game. Ha! What do you know? It's a spin-off. For those who don't know about Pokemon Ranger, it's a game where you catch Pokemon by drawing circles around them. Yep, nothing screams gameplay like doodling twisters on your touchpad. The first game did not launch well with its awfully luck-centric catching method, terrible boss fights, and a story that's only passable at best. So as you can imagine, it catches me super off guard to find that not only is the sequel a dramatic improvement over the original, but by the good graces of Arceus is it one of the best games I've ever played. Shadows of Almia refined the core gameplay of the first by not forcing you to capture a Pokemon in one continuous stroke. It instead has a gauge that fills up for every round you make, and the assists you get from the respective Pokemon helpers further add to the effect. This makes the gameplay infinitely less tedious and opens up a lot of possibilities to diversify the fighting patterns of the bosses. Speaking of which, it's great to see what they did with the bosses like Spiritomb, Lucario, Infernape, and Darkrai. Definitely preferable over the train wrecks of the original bosses. Even the story gets a dramatic upgrade. All the characters are so much more dynamic and well developed this time, and the villains all share a right blend between funny, threatening, and even thoughtful. Sure, some of the early boss fights aren't that good, and the main antagonist is a blank slate, which is probably the one thing the first game got right in comparison. But does that retract the game's quality by much? Hell no! As sad as I am that the Ranger game stopped at Gen 4, I'm still glad that the series at least hit one massive jackpot ahead of time. Others have their preferences on their favorite Pokemon game and spin-off, but for me, Shadows of Almia will always be king. To this day, there has never been an RPG that impressed me more than Bowser's Inside Story. While it's not my favorite Mario game anymore, it still remains the undisputed king of RPGs for me. Coming out of the helm of Superstar Saga and Partners in Time, this game still maintains its turn-based combat with skill-driven action commands integrated to every move, as we always loved with these games. Compared to Partners in Time, which is an honorable mention for this list, it makes a lot more use out of the touchscreen when it comes to using the special moves performed by Bowser. Oh yeah, speaking of Bowser, playing as him is a blast. He pretty much takes center stage pummeling the larger enemies on the surface, while Mario and Luigi get busy fighting all the cells and bacterium in his gut. As you can imagine, antics ensue. It helps that we get the company of funny, colorful characters across the game, and as we all know, Fawful is best tangy condiment. One of the best Mario villains and still is. Cute, epic, and a fortune to the senses, it's so good even the 3DS remake couldn't capture its pure marvel and stature. Major grats to Alpha Dream. They may be gone now, but they sure gifted the world with an experience no one can replace. Ace Attorney! I can already hear what you're all gonna tell me for reminiscing these games in particular. And yeah, call me a behind the times degenerate for still sticking my heart into this series, but I don't care! Ace Attorney means the world to me with how much it's opened me to the world of interactive visual novels. Some of you might say I'm cheating a little bit here since these games originally came out in the GBA before they were localized. But does it matter? It honestly works even better on the DS because of the convenient touchscreen menu integration, so I say it still counts. Gameplay wise, Ace Attorney is not complicated. It's all about being a super cool lawyer standing up for your clients in court. You find contradictions in witness testimonies and yell OBJECTION! Like a bad mother effer. Well, good mother effer. You get what I mean. That's all there is to the gameplay, but what made it work superfluously is just how good the design of it all is. The writing is really fun and witty. These aren't just your straight man attorneys and witnesses. They're sarcastic, quirky, and hilarious people. But when they need to get serious, they blend it in really well that it doesn't feel distracting. It's why I came to love characters like Phoenix Wright, the Face Sisters, Pearl, Gumshoe, Von Karma, Godot, and the many friendly and unfriendly characters alike. The presentation really surprised me too. The music collection is some of the most diverse I've heard in the retro gallery. It perfectly captures any environment or scenario required, let it be bright and optimistic, dreary and depressing, or intense and dramatic. I thought I won't get into the complicated art style at first, but again, the writing is so endearing that it pulled me in to care about how great these characters look. It's really impressive how they're able to mix realistic designs with comedic exaggerations. Some go a little further than others, but it stays in just a gray enough line for it to not seem too jarring. Even the mysteries, you think they would be really straightforward, but every case finds a way to twist how you use every evidence to identify what happens in every scenario. It made what seemed like such a simple game into something a lot more deep and fascinating. Instead of predicting where the story will go through build-up paranoia, it really feels like it challenges how you think when perceiving a situation. Yeah, you could just look at a cheat sheet, but there's no way you won't learn something from such a wonderful experience. I know a lot of people don't like some aspect of the series, like the investigations being a little drawn out and the minigames can be overwhelming, but I personally welcome them all the same. They do add a lot to the game in terms of story, mystery solving, and character development in a more stable environment. It's not like Danganronpa where the minigames just appear because it needs gameplay. Every moment in Ace Attorney matters to the core story of every case, and that's what makes it so charming from start to finish. What else is there to say? I'm very grateful with the installments offered across the series within this system. The original, Justice for All, Trials and Tribulations, the Investigations game, and hell, even Apollo Justice, all mean so much to me. It may have its downsides, but every last upside it offers are exceptionally worth it. I was given the inspiration to write, to get better at studying the importance of storytelling, to expand my horizon and become more creative as I go. And all of it is thanks to this wonderful series. Thank you for watching, everyone. I hope you're having a good new year, and perhaps this video added a little more to that delight in some way. If it does, consider subscribing for more of my stuff. A new decade is upon us, and I don't plan on stopping yet.